being said, let's take a moment to welcome Shane and Hope from Fiery Ginger Farm for their interactive farm tour.
Hi everybody, I'm Hope Sipla and I am co-owner of Fiery Ginger Farm. My business partner Shane Srilligan is behind the camera right now, so you can't see him, but he is here. I'm going to give you a little background on what we are, what we do, and all of those things. So we are a 2-acre urban farm in West Sacramento. We began as an incubator site with the Center for Land-Based Learning because both Shane and I graduated from the 2015 California Farm Academy, which is a 7-month training program for beginning farmers. In our previous life, before farming, we were both educators. Shane was a middle school teacher, science teacher for 15 years, and I was a garden educator working in school gardens, and I co-managed a school farm in Davis for a number of years. When we graduated from the California Farm Academy, an option to you is to start your farm business on an incubator site, which allows you 5 years on leased land at affordable rates to get you started and get your business going. This particular site is unique, and what drew us to it is that it is actually owned by Washington Unified School District. So we have spent 5 years as incubators, and then this past year we signed a private lease with Washington Unified on 2 acres of land. Previously it had just been 1, but we've expanded to 2 acres. And we work a lot with the school district. We are a for-profit farm. However, we do focus on farm-to-school education and getting healthy foods, fresh foods into school lunches. And we support school gardens and teachers in a variety of ways. Some of the things we do with schools, anything from in-person classroom lessons that we can customize for teachers to farm field trips. This year we haven't had a lot, obviously, but in past years, fall and spring, we have a lot of farm field trips of all ages, anywhere from preschool to high school. And we make them interactive. Whatever we're doing on the farm that day, they just come out and farm right along with us. Anything from washing and packing to planting to harvesting to feeding the animals. Anything we're doing, they're doing it with us. In addition to other ways that we support, we can go in and do classroom lessons, like I said. We have worked with FFAs to have students house animals on our farm. We just provide the space, usually, although in past years we have sponsored some animals, which allows kids to, we purchase the animal, that is the farm purchases the animal and pays for the feed. And at the end, when the student sells their animal at fair or to a private buyer, then they pay us back the costs associated with that animal. So it allows kids an option to not only have a place to house an animal in the city, but also to be able to purchase that animal and make a profit at the end. And we provide mentorship along the way. We've had sheep, we've had pigs. This year we have some goats, and we're hopefully going to have a few more pigs this year, which we're pretty excited about. In addition to that, some of the infrastructure on our farm, for example, the shed you're going to see was built by a high school construction class. They built it as a house for the sheep that were going to be housed for the River City FFA. So that is pretty exciting. So there's lots of things that we do in relation to farm to school. We also provide garden training for garden coordinators, as well as garden lessons. Teachers or garden coordinators would like us to come teach a garden lesson. We've done that for several districts, such as Natomas Unified. We've managed our garden club a few times, and it was a lot of fun. So one of the things we have on the farm this year is Hannah. And Hannah is a senior at Davis Senior High, and she's also my daughter. But she is her FFA project this year is dairy goats, and she is managing them for a breeding project and also for a soap project. And she will tell you a little bit about her goats. So Hannah, can you tell us a little bit about the type of goats that you have here?
So these are Nigerian dwarf goats. This is as big as they get. And she will be 3 years old on the 10th, actually today, along with her brother over there. And then she will be 3 years old on April 2nd. And they are my breeding project for FFA.
Why Nigerian dwarf goats? Why did you choose Nigerian dwarf goats?
They're really easy to start off with. They're really easy to control when you're walking them on a show ring. I also just like them. They're small and cute.
And what is their main purpose?
So their main purpose is for dairy. They're really good as a small dairy goat. A lot of people who want dairy goats but don't have the space for a standard size dairy goat go with small goats like Nigerian dwarf goats or pygmy goats. But these guys are really, really good at that, and they can produce with really good dairy genetics up to 5 pounds of milk a day.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your breeding project that you're doing for FFA this year.
So this year I'm breeding, or I have freed up Red, and then she's due on the 18th to the 20th, which is really exciting. I think she'll have of March. I think she'll have about 2 to 3 babies, and then Georgia, who just went into the barn, she was bred. She was brought to the breeder on Friday, and she came back yesterday or on Monday. And hopefully, in 30 days, I'll be able to pregnancy check her. And if she's pregnant, she'll have her baby somewhere around late July.
Okay. And so, what is the idea behind your breeding project? What are you doing with that?
So the idea behind my breeding project is to improve the genetics of my does through proven dairy lines, and then to sell them, the babies, either as pets to families who just like goats and would like to have them as pets, or to families who want a dairy animal, but they don't have the room for a cow or a standard size goat.
Okay. And then what do you do with their milk, and how long, tell us how long the babies are here and kind of what that process looks like.
So the babies are here for about 8 weeks while they're on their dam or their mom. I dam raise babies. You can bottle raise them, but I just like dam raising unless I have to bottle raise, because I feel that they get bigger and they're healthier when they're raised by their mom. But with the milk, I use the milk and goat milk soap. I've been making that and selling it at the Davis Farmers Market along with the Fiery Ginger Farm online store. And it's been a lot of fun.
And is there anything else you think people should know about Nigerian dwarf goats, or about, how long have you been doing this project?
I've been doing it since 2018. Yeah, 2018. And Nigerian dwarf goats, if you're ever considering getting a goat, are really good for first-time goat owners, just because they're really, really low maintenance. They love the heat. They'll sit in the sun in the summer in 110-degree weather for like a half an hour to an hour and not care about how hot it is, because they really like it. But they're really good starter goats.
And what is your hope moving on from these babies? Do you plan to keep some of these babies? How are you planning to further your genetic?
My plan is to hopefully get a breeding buck, and then since these guys are 3 years old, I'll probably breed them about once or twice more after this. And when I decide that they're going to be retired, I will go to an outside buck and then retain a doe off of them for a baby female goat. And then hopefully my goal is to improve dairy genetics and then go to shows and show them to see how I've improved.
Are there any questions? Does anyone have any questions for Hannah about her goats or about FFA projects or how we field FFA projects or any of those things?
Put them in the chat.
Put them in the chat if you have them. I think it's also, thank you, Hannah, for doing that. I think it's also important to note that it's not just animal projects that we help with. If a student had a project, say they wanted to learn about greenhouse work, or they wanted to learn about specialty crops, or they wanted to grow something, all of those things are available to students as well. So far, we've mainly had students who are interested in animal projects, so that's kind of what we've worked with students on. The other thing do we have a question?
Yeah.
What's our question?
So one question we have is about how much time do you spend managing FFA projects in addition to the rest of your work?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. It depends. It depends on what the project is and how much mentorship they need. Some students will come with a really great idea that they've researched a lot or that they have previous knowledge in, and then there's not a lot of time spent on it. It's mostly just providing the opportunity and the space for them to work on that, and they mostly work with their supervising ag teacher. Other times, we'll have students that are raising a hog for the very first time. And we're out here in the summer every day anyway, but we do spend a little bit of time, maybe an hour or so a day, trying to work with them on how they would walk their pig in a show ring, or what kinds of questions a judge might ask in the show ring. So I think it's really variable, but we try to give them as much support as they need, or if they come to us and say they need something, we're always happy to help. And most of our projects are in the summer. So most of the projects start in May and go through the summer. So.
And then are there any special considerations or permits in regards to liability?
That's a good question. The school district, we're all fingerprinted, and we work with the school district in that respect. The students, the FFA students, have to sign a project management thing with their FFA advisor, so that kind of covers the liability in that sense. Yeah, and we also do have a lot of liability insurance, which covers those things. So, yeah.
And then, do you manage the student project inquiries or support? Do they reach out to you? And then, do you work with the school districts or farms for the projects on a yearly basis?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. Sometimes ag teachers, we work a lot with the River City ag teacher, Jennifer McAllister. She'll reach out to us and say, I have these students that have these projects. Is that something you can help with? Sometimes we'll, say to the kids, we'll go into the classroom and we'll say, hey, if anybody wants to do a project this year, these are the list of things that are available, and this is how we can help you. We're also open to other ideas. So sometimes it's a matter of us going in and presenting. What was the other half of the question? Something about
the inquiries, and then also projects on a yearly basis.
Oh yeah, so some kids, like Hannah's had her goats out here for a couple of years. Some kids will do a continuation of a project they started the year before. So it's their second year doing a project, or some years, it's been new projects every year. So.
And then an additional question that came in is, do you do on-site composting with food service waste?
We do not currently do on-site composting with food service waste. It is something we've kind of thrown around a little bit and talked about. Maybe it would be interesting to try that at some point. We don't honestly have a super great composting system or a way to turn it super fast right now. So I don't know, maybe at some point. Yeah, we do have pigs out here. They get a lot of the compost off the farm. We don't currently have them. They're being born this week, hopefully. But when we do have them, they get a lot of that. And we've talked about being able to feed the pigs with some of the compostable food service waste if it's things they can eat. So we'll see what the future holds on that. Okay, so any other questions about FFA? Okay, we're gonna move along. Feel free to ask, if you think of a question, feel free to ask it. One of the other ways in which we support school gardens is to provide them with plant starts each year. We actually provide plant starts to about 70 school gardens in the area. West Sac, Woodlands, Davis. I think those are where most of the school gardens are that receive our plants. So one of the things our crew is up to today is repotting plants for school gardens. So you guys can kind of see we've been busy over here doing a lot of these. These are all tomatoes, some of which are going to school gardens, and some of which are going to other outlets that we have. Over here we have Ben. We have Ben and Manuela, and Ben and Manuela are actually apprentices through the Center for Land-Based Learning Farm and Ranch Management Apprenticeship Program. So they'll be with us for 2 years, learning the ropes of managing an urban, in this case, an urban farm, but there's lots of different farms that participate in the program. And right now they are working on potting up plants. So Ben, tell me a little bit about why we repot the plants. Why do we do that?
We're doing it because these guys are all in their really tiny spots in the flat, but as they get bigger, they need more space for the roots to grow along with the rest of it. Because these guys are never going to be big tomato plants if you keep them in a tiny little hole like that. So this will give them a little bit more strength before we plant them out in the field.
Awesome. So right now it looks like you guys are doing some Cherokee purple tomatoes. What other plants have you done today? Looks like some peppers, maybe?
Yeah, we've done a few different varieties of tomatoes and a few different varieties of peppers. Lots of good summer stuff.
So thanks, Ben, for that. Look at those happy little babies. So one of the reasons we have a question that looks like,
how do you determine what kind of starts you provide to schools? Is there a schedule in school's request? And then do you do any plant based on different cultures that are represented in school communities?
that's a great question. Right now, kind of what we're doing is we start plants kind of based on what we feel like would grow well in school gardens. So our crop plan is pretty much set up to work with the school year, the 9 months of the school year. And in normal years, we only farm the 9 months of the school year. So the plant starts that we give to the schools in the spring, in the fall, are plants that we're going to grow out here on our farm that would likely be seen in school lunches, that would crops that we would sell to them. Also, so there would be some correlation between what they see on their school lunches and then also what they're going to grow in their garden. And the hope is that will also wind up in the cafeteria so they could see it start to finish. So our goal with the plant starts is kind of to make it like they can see the whole evolution of it. They can come out here for a field trip. They can see what's growing on the farm. They can take it back to their school. They can plant it in their garden and they can see it in the cafeteria. As far as trying to plant things that represent the different cultures, we haven't really done that yet, although I think that that is a really great idea, and we'd love to work with somebody on that sort of a project. If there were somebody who wanted to, we'd be happy to start some plants and do some projects surrounding that. And then I think, what was the other half of the question? Missing something there, I think.
Schedule or anything?
Oh, schedule. Yeah. So we start all of our plants for fall generally in July. So any of the plants are going to go to the school gardens in August or September. We'll start in July. All of these plants, which are spring and summer plants, were started in January. Yeah.
And then another question that came in is, are there any learning curves around which crops did or didn't work?
Yeah, there's always learning curves. There's also a lot of variables with farming. So sometimes what we see is one year something will work and the next year maybe it didn't work because there was a lot of pest damage or the weather was different somehow. But we haven't narrowed down mostly to varieties that we've had success with, and then we pass those along to the school.
While we're waiting for questions, Shane apologizes for janky filming.
Any other questions about, I guess it's also important to note that another way in which we support school gardens with their plants is that we can go in and all these questions are reminding me that we can go into school gardens and provide school garden training. So it can talk about planting schedules and varieties that might work in your garden and ways in which that you can grow during the school year, because as you know, most of the school year is during the winter months, which is kind of challenging for schools to grow. It's rainy, you know, it's a little challenging to get kids out there, but it's also challenging to grow things because they're slower. So we can go in and talk to people about when the right time to plant is and how to do that and what kind of lessons you can do with some of the crops that you're growing in your garden and all of those things. So with that, we talked a little bit about growing during the school year and that it's mostly during the winter. So some of the things that we do to help make that work are season extension, and you can see behind me, I hope you can see behind me, Shane says yes. There are some, what we call caterpillar tunnels over there. It's cold in the winter and things grow very, very slowly. So one of the things that we do to get consistent crops for our school customers and all of our customers, but mostly our school customers, is we grow underneath these high tunnels, which create a little greenhouse that we can actually walk right into and plant and do all those things, and it makes it more convenient. But it also provides consistent temperatures, moisture stays pretty consistent in there, and it helps things grow faster so that we can have a consistent flow of whatever crops are in there for the school districts that we sell to. We only have 4 tunnels right now, but we're hoping to expand that. So one of the other things that we do for season extension are these little tiny row covers right here. Sometimes people call them low tunnels, but they basically just pull over these little wire hoops. And it does the same thing, except that every time it rains or it storms or it's windy, we have to pull them down so that they don't blow away or the plants don't get smashed by the water on the plastic. So we use a little bit of those. This is a system that could be used in a school garden. You can buy or manufacture yourself fairly inexpensively hoops that could go even over raised beds, and you could put plastic over them, and that would help you move things along. You know, sometimes you plant in the winter and then things just overwinter and don't actually grow and you can't use them until spring. It doesn't make it very conducive for outdoor classroom lessons when things aren't growing very fast and you can't do anything with them. So this would be an option, little metal hoops that you could cut yourself, or you could purchase them at various places, and then row cover, which is also easily found. You can find it in plastic form, which we find is best, or you can find it what's called remade, which is actually a fabric that can go over your beds. The only issue we found with the fabric is that it kind of, some of the light doesn't get through as well as it does with the plastic. So those are options for season extension. We have a question.
Yes, we have a couple questions. First, Darlene would like to know, how did you start getting involved with work with schools, and did someone approach you?
Yeah, so I started working in schools. I moved here from Michigan 10 years ago. Michigan has a very short growing season. When I got here, I didn't have a job. I was a stay-at-home mom. So I started working with my kids' school garden, and I realized how much I loved it. I was just volunteering. And that kind of grew into a paid position managing school gardens and working as an educator at the school farm. And Shane was a teacher in Stockton for 15 years, and he worked with his school garden there, as well as other programs like Green Tech that work with youth to get them skills in agriculture and construction, I think. Yeah. And so this farm was our own creation. We just, like I said, took it on as this incubator site. We really didn't know what it was going to grow into. It was a 1/4 acre, and there was another farmer farming here. at the time, and then it just kind of expanded on its own as our farm to school work took off, as we started partnering with the school district, Washington Unified, in various ways, and expanding our reach to other school districts. Right now we work with, I think, 5 school districts in the area. And so as that happened, it just kind of took off on its own.
Perfect. Hi, Mindy. Thank you for the question. She'd like to know, do you guys grow any perennials or seed crops?
We do not currently grow any seed crops. And we do have some Peugeot or pineapple guava, but we don't really have any other perennials. We have a small hedgerow, which is just for beneficial insects, and we plan on expanding that next year, but no real perennial crops at this time. So one of the other challenges as we make our way over to the bees that I can talk about is a lot of times with school gardens, because it is during the winter, you're growing crops that most people think, oh, kids aren't going to try that. They're not going to want to eat it. What we found is that that's not actually true. We grow a lot of really interesting things on the farm, like salad turnips, kohlrabi, radishes, and all of those can be found in school lunches in the districts we work with. And what we found is if kids are able to sample it, learn how to grow it, see where it comes from, and learn about the plant, they become interested and they start wanting to try all these things that are grown in the winter. So if you're concerned about growing something in the winter that the kids won't actually use, I think you'll find if they're given the opportunity to taste test it and grow it themselves, that they will actually do it. I'm looking behind me because I'm not used to walking backwards like this. So I just don't want to run into anything like this big pile of sandbags. One of the other things that we do out here is we work with a lot of community organizations and garden support organizations and friends of our farm, like Rachel here, who is with the Bee Charmers. And Rachel does a lot of bee education work on our farm with the bees that she manages on our farm. And so I will turn this over to Rachel and let her tell you about her bees and what she does.
Awesome. So I'm Rachel Morrison. I own the Bee Charmers. I provide beekeeping education and bee and pollinator education to both adults and kids. So I help with field trips here at the farm, but I also have bees on other learning farms and other places where folks can just come and connect with nature and bees. So I wanted to show you a little bit about the hive that we have here at Fiery Ginger. This was made with kids in mind. So I want to take a look over here. You can kind of see that the back area has a viewing window. So we would still suit the kids up, but they can see without having to open it what's going on in the hive. The other kind of awesome part of having the bees live here, year round, is that if you're here on the farm and you might be here for a field trip or an adventure, you can watch the bees leave the hive, go and pollinate the crops, and then bring the pollen and nectar back to the hive. If we have enough honey that it's extra the bees don't need, we also can offer the honey in the veggie box or through the Bee Charmers. So you get to see the bees working on the farm and see the interaction between the crop pollination and the bees, staying healthy with the nutrition that's provided here at the farm. So everyone obviously can't have a hive. Maybe you're a teacher or someone that works with kids, and that's not really something that you feel confident to do on your own. I wanted to show you some tools that you can use really easily in a classroom with or without the help of a beekeeper. So one of those is this game that we play a lot with students. It's called The Story of Bees. This is actually through Girl Next Door Honey. She's also a small female business in San Diego. And you don't even have to be an expert in bees. It has the script for you here. If you're the adult or the teacher, you get to be the queen and wear the crown. And you talk through all of the jobs in the hive and how the colony works together as a superorganism. The kids all get to have a job and they act out all of the jobs in the hive. And you're kind of teaching about insects and pollination at the same time. And it's a really fun, active game. You also could connect with the Bee Charmers or a beekeeper that's a bee association member in your county. Most counties have bee associations. And beekeepers are usually really excited to come to a classroom. They may bring an observation hive like this. We just put a frame of bees in there. It keeps the bees safe. And it also, I think, takes away some of that fear factor that, youth and adults have about bees being stinging insects. So the bees can breathe, they're fine. You can still kind of hear them a little bit, and you get to see all the different jobs they're doing. One of the things that I usually do is talk through what happens in a hive. And then after that, we'll have the students see if they can identify those things that we talked about in person live. They're seeing bees moving around right here. They're making honey. There's larvae in here. So you get to talk about the insect life cycle. Nectar they've collected really recently from the farm because it's still kind of being processed, how they build wax. The kids all really love this. I usually start it covered like this because it can be so distracting. They're so excited, and then I have a big reveal. And they get to
Hold on, cameraman, going crazy.
Shane got excited about the bees too.
Changes in gizmo is not super great. Okay.
Yeah, so I kind of keep it covered, and then I'm like, what do you see? What do you hear? Tell me about that. And they like to get, really close and kind of see it up really close that you couldn't do if you were in a hive that was open so the bees can get out. So that's kind of what we do with field trips, is just talk about the process here on the farm and then show them what it's like with a little bit of that fear factor taken away so they can really connect with them as pollinators and not think of them as scary stinging insects, and know how important they are, to agriculture, but also in general.
If someone would like to know, where do you purchase or obtain the Story of Bees kit?
So that is from Girl Next Door Honey. Her website is Girl Next Door Beekeeping or Girl Next Door Honey. It's Hillary Kearney in San Diego. I'm not affiliated her, but I've used that game a lot here at the farm. We've had kids acting out. They've actually gone around and pollinated, and they love it. It's super affordable, and you can play it over and over again, and you can change up the script. So it's Girl Next Door Honey.
Somebody just linked to that.
Oh, good. Okay.
Any other questions?
No?
There's a parting shot of bees.
Bees at work.
Okay.
Thanks, Rachel.
Hey,
We're back. So we're going to take a little walk past our newest addition to our farm, this half acre behind me. And we'll just show you guys that on the way to our greenhouse. So greenhouses are pretty important. They help us get all of our plant starts going. Most schools don't have access to those. So we're going to show you what ours is like and show you something easy that you could replicate if you wanted to. So just real quick, this is our one of our newest spots. It's the first time we've planted this side. For the fall and winter, we planted it back in August, I guess, September. Some of our broccoli and cauliflower successions are still out there doing well. Some of it's been ripped out or replanted with spring successions like kale, lettuce, and all of our storage onions are out there. So that's kind of what it looks like on the other side. And then these are our greenhouses. So we didn't always have a greenhouse. For a while, we were renting space from farmer friends and people we knew, which wasn't really conducive to getting plant starts sometimes. So we decided that we would put up a greenhouse. Ours is pretty primitive. We don't have electricity out here. So everything you see in here, you could replicate on a school site without electricity. It's just a little bit slower, but it's fine. So we will go to our main greenhouse. This is our main greenhouse. It's passive, like I said, so there's no heat or electricity. We do have two small vent fans that are solar powered. Quite honestly, they're not the best vent fans, but they do give us a little bit of airflow when it's this time of year and it starts to get really warm in here. We're in the winter and the humidity is really high in here, which helps us keep the plants healthy. Our sides are pretty simple. They roll up so that we can vent the greenhouse if we need to do that. This one, you know, was a little more on the expensive side because we had to frame it in. We just bought it basically off of Craigslist and then framed it back in. Shane framed it back in, put it all up, put the landscape fabric down, and we used some recycled tables to keep our costs down. These are tires from the motorcycle shop across the street. So added benefit of being an urban farm is we can recycle lots of materials. But this takes up a lot of space. It's not really an option for a lot of schools. But what you could do is something much smaller, much simpler. We bought the one behind Shane as a kit. It's a 50-foot tunnel. And it's a caterpillar tunnel, just like our high tunnels. And then we just put plastic over the top. And at night, we just close it up with a clamp. And it's very simple. For that matter, you could do something even simpler, like I said, with the row covers, and start your plants in flats and put row covers over your garden beds, and that makes a little greenhouse. All of those things are pretty easy, and they will help you with season extension for the school year, as well as getting plant starts going for your school gardens.
Hey, Hope, why is it important to have plant starts and not just seeds?
So the thing with the winter months is the soil temperatures are really low. So sometimes you can direct seed things like root crops such as carrots or turnips. All of those things, beets, can be direct seeded, but you might not get great germination on some of those things. Other things like lettuces, which can be direct seeded, really probably won't germinate very well. So what we do is we start them as starts in our greenhouse. It gets them off to this nice healthy start. As you can see, all of these plants, some of our summer plants even are thriving. These are melons, and we won't plant them for about another 3-4 weeks probably. But this is just an example, like, you know, these guys like 80-90 degree soil temperatures to germinate. That germination is pretty good. If we just direct seeded them, which we could at this time of the year, they probably wouldn't come up, and we'd have to wait until May, maybe June to direct seed them to get any kind of consistent germination. So that's a good example. Are there any questions about propagating in a greenhouse or anything you guys want to know about greenhouses or season extension?
So far, one of the questions that are coming in are, what kind of farm equipment do you have, or do you hire any out?
So we do not hire out any farm work right now. We do all of it. We have 3 full-time employees that help us on the farm. As far as farm equipment that we have, we do own 2 very, very old tractors. One's like a 59 Massey Ferguson that we bought. And one is just an old Ford tractor. We actually don't use those very much on our farm. I would not say that we are no-till, but we are minimal tillage. And we use what's called a BCS, which is essentially a big walk-behind tractor for any of the tillage that we have to do. Aside from that, though, we do use some other equipment on the farm that's pretty unique to smaller, what you might call market garden farms, which some people call a small farm like this. We use the Quick Cut Greens Cutter, which is a green cutter that's powered by a drill. And it has a little bag in the back. I should have brought it out for demo, but we didn't. It has a little bag in the back, and the drill powers the motor, and it has a blade in the front, and it just has these like car wash little, what do they call it? Yeah, it has just like this little rotating ropes, and it kicks the greens that you cut back into the bag. And that helps us cut greens really fast. We also have the paper pot transplanter, so we're not transplanting everything by hand. And we can kind of show you that, or I can demo it. So we'll walk over here.
Well, you mentioned the Farmer's Friend.
Oh yeah, Farmer's Friend is where we bought all of our high tunnels, our caterpillar tunnels. It's also where we bought, I think we bought our Quick Cut Greens Cutter. You can buy the paper pot transplanter at paperpotco.com, or you can buy it through Johnny's Seeds. But yeah, most of our season extension stuff comes from Farmers Run. So we're just kind of walking down to the farm. We're going to walk into one of these tunnels so that you guys can see the inside and what it looks like. Mostly we're growing lettuce in these tunnels right now. That's our biggest crop to schools. It has been, and we're hoping that those sales all come back as schools get back online. So this is a paper pot flat. We seed into these, and then it strings them out like little paper dolls. The transplanter does, trenches it and covers it all at the same time.
We have a question real quick.
Sure.
Cal would love to know if you could speak more on the human resources. She heard of 2 farm managers, 3 full-time employees, and 2 apprentices.
So our 2 apprentices are actually 2 of our full-time employees. And then we have 1 other full-time employee that used to work with Shane at a previous job at Green Tech that he thought would be a great fit for our farm. And so we hired him as our 3rd full-time employee.
Talk a little about the apprenticeship.
So the apprenticeship is a 2-year program through the Center for Land-Based Learning. And basically it's a nationally recognized apprenticeship, just like any other apprenticeship, pipe fitting or welding or electrical work or any of those things. So they'll leave the program with a certificate that they can take elsewhere to become a farm manager if they chose to do that. So it's pretty exciting. It's one of the first farm apprenticeship programs in the country. So we're going to go in this tunnel. And in this tunnel we have Ben. And Ben is planting with our paper pot transplanter right now, so you can see how it works. Basically, underneath is a little V, a little metal V, and it makes this trench for which the plants fall down into. And then if Ben stops for just a second, there's these little paddles right here by the wheels. And these little paddles are actually what covers it. So, it's the paper pot transplanter. And yep, and these are the little pots. So as you can see, they're kind of like in a little honeycomb pattern. And as Ben moves it, it just separates them. And the pots themselves come in 3 different spacings. So you can get 6-inch spacing, 4-inch spacing, 2-inch spacing. We mostly use 6-inch spacing because we're mostly using it for lettuces. But what you can keep going there. But what it means is we can't use it for everything we plant. Unfortunately, I really wish we could. It makes it a lot faster. We can put about 1,500 plants in the ground in an hour, which would have in the past taken us about half a day to do at least. So as you can see, space is a little tight in the tunnel. And we've opened the sides for venting so that we can control the humidity a little bit and the temperature so we can get too hot. The only downside to the paper pot transplanter that I can see is that if the plants aren't the right size, if the plants are too big or they have too many roots, sometimes they flip out or they get stuck, like Ben's fixing right there.
Those are smoother, but those are a little old.
Yeah, those guys have been in the flat just a little too long. But if the plants are the right size, like anything, it works pretty great. We also have very loose, sandy soil. So I don't know how well it would work in a more heavier clay soil. Maybe not as well, but for us, it works really great. And this allows us to get successions in and out really fast and be a lot more consistent with our sales to the schools than other times.
This tunnel was all planted today. Probably 5,000 plants in here. It's a 100-foot tunnel. And it was all planted in the last few hours. That would take us days
Days.
by hand.
Days and days. Any questions about the paper pot transplanter? Yeah, I should mention it was originally Japanese technology and then brought to the US and now it's widely available to get. It's a whole system. You need a special seeder for the paper pots, the paper pots themselves, and then of course the transplanter. So it's kind of an investment, but for us, it's what makes it work. So, questions about that? Dad, what do you think about the podcast?
And it goes significantly faster than doing it by hand. Yeah, I can't even imagine how long it would take if I had done all of this one plant at a time. I would have probably gotten about this far in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
You get to stand up.
You
Yeah,
get to stand up. You don't have to be hunched
that's
over. It's fairly lightweight, so you can just pick it up and move it. Yeah, it's good.
There were a lot of questions about the BCS. We could just, it's in a shed, we could show it.
We can show it. Yeah. What questions about the BCS?
What was it?
Oh, what is it? What does it look like?
Yeah, one question's come in on pre-COVID, were you mostly selling to schools or at markets too? Was it a 50-50 split?
That's a good question. So pre-COVID, our sales were about 60% to schools, and the rest was farmers market. We're at the Davis Farmers Market. A couple small restaurants. Rayleigh's Food to Families, which is a program that purchases our produce and donates it back to the food bank. Also Rayleigh's grocery store in the summer. And we had a CSA, which has kind of taken the place of schools there for a minute during COVID. And now our schools are starting to come back online. So we're excited about that. It's kind of our mission.
Somebody was asking about perennials. You want to talk about?
So you want to show the BTS real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where we were headed. So I don't know if you guys
Oh yeah, hold on.
can see in here. This is our BCS. It essentially looks kind of like a big rototiller. It has a couple different implements to it though. It has a rototiller, which you actually see here, which is not attached. It has a power harrow, which is essentially some rotating tines that don't go very deep and they just kind of disrupt the soil so that they can loosen things so we can easily clear beds or make it good for direct seeding, that sort of thing. And we also have a mower. And I'm forgetting something. What is the other event?
A rotary plow.
Rotary plow. So yeah, so that's what we use when we do any kind of tillage. Somebody was asking about perennials. So just real quick. Pineapple guava. They're neither a pineapple nor a guava. However, they are, they get a little tiny pink flower right about, I don't know, the end of the summer, and then they fruit in late October. And they have a little tiny fruit that's about this big. It's green, and the inside is kind of pale yellow white. And they taste very citrusy and kind of strawberry-like. They're a really unique flavor, and you just scoop out the center. That's how you eat them. Cut them in half. And to find out if they're ripe, you either have to shake the tree or pick them up off the ground, which is why not many people grow them as a production crop, because harvesting off the ground is not really conducive to a quick harvest.
Another question that came in, thank you, Darlene. How did you know what rates to set when negotiating with schools?
Yeah, so it's exactly it. It's kind of a negotiation. We do some math beforehand and figure out, you know, what it costs us to produce those crops, and then we kind of figure out what they're purchasing now. It's a lot of factors. It's what they're purchasing now. It's also, you know, how our product compares. If it's a better product, it's maybe worth a little more. Some school districts try to keep their price per serving to a certain point, so that makes it really simple. One of the districts we work with just has a chart, and she said, I try to keep all of my servings to, I think it was like what, 25 cents per serving, or varied by crop maybe. But that made it pretty easy, and then we could just identify like, this crop works for schools, this one doesn't because we can't meet the serving price. And for us, yeah. I mean, it has to work for both of us. It has to work for them, and it has to work for us. Does that answer your
You
question?
can identify them.
Yes, so we can
Mm,
identify what crops will work based on some of those charts, and yeah, and some crops just don't work. We don't sell bokchoy to the schools really that often unless we have an excess of it, because the price doesn't really work for us. But there are a lot of things that we do sell to them.
That's as much a factor of our systems as it is
Yeah,
the
we've kind of
market.
set up our systems to work with crops that we know work for our farm, our production system, and for profitability on our scale. So for example, lettuce is quick in and out rotation. We can do it very fast, and the price works for the schools, and it also works for us to make us profitable. And we can do it at high volume, which is also important.
Haley would love to know if you guys grow any ginger.
We don't. You often get that question. My husband actually came up with that name as kind of a joke, and then Shane got stuck with it as the farm name. Because I'm the fiery ginger.
Any herbs?
Herbs, we do. But this year we're starting to grow a few herbs. Yeah.
Basil.
Yeah, I mean, every year we grow basil, but this year we're kind of expanding it. We're hoping to expand it to some perennial herbs, but also just some herbs that can go into our farm share boxes, sell at the farmers markets. That's right.
And then how much do you have to prepare or process products when selling to school districts?
Yeah, so like I said, the biggest thing we sell to school districts is lettuce. What we've found out in working with schools is that there's not a lot of standards on that. We just talk with them, show them what our processes are for washing produce. And of course, not everything gets washed. Like some of the summer crops don't get washed, tomatoes, peppers, those things. We just show them what our processes are and see what they're comfortable with. For example, our lettuce mix that we sold a lot to school districts, we triple wash that. Come to find out, there's not really an industry standard for triple wash, but we all agreed that they wanted it as clean as possible so that their kitchen staff could open it up and use it right away. And
It's a mix.
it's a mix.
Cut
So it's a cut mix. So it's like little baby leaf lettuces that are cut into a mix, bagged bulk that they can then just put on their salad bar and the salad cups or whatever they use it for. So we just kind of talk with them about, show them where we're at, show them our processes and what it is that they're looking for. And they're all different. So it really just depends on the district.
Maybe something about some of the crops we try to select to help make simple.
Yeah, so I think what helped us sell to school districts a little bit is that we try to select crops that are simple. For example, the lettuce mix is pre-cut and washed. They can just use it. The cucumbers we sell them are Armenian cucumbers, which look different to kids, but kids love them, and they don't have to peel them because the skins are thin and have no spines or fuzzies on them really, so they can just slice them and serve them. So we try to pick items that are going to be easy for the kitchen staff. Often a barrier is food prep in a kitchen. If they're not using a centralized kitchen, or even if they are using a centralized kitchen, sometimes food prep and chopping and washing can be a barrier. So we try to remove all those steps as much as possible.
Minnie would love to know if you could talk a little bit more about the salad washing operation.
Salad washing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 3 tanks that we fill. We spray them with a food grade sanitizer, wash them out. It's a hydrogen peroxide solution, food grade. Wash them out, fill them with water. We harvest our lettuce into big mesh laundry bags that we attach to a rigid basket so it has some form. Cinch that closed, toss it in the first tank, agitate it, move it to the second tank, agitate it again, and then move it to the third tank, dump it, agitate it, and then we spin it out in big salad spinners. That's kind of how it works. Any last minute question?
One more is, can you talk a bit more about the student engagement during visits? Are there core points you stick to for every visit and key points you hit depending on the jobs that are done that day?
Yeah, so I think our mission with the field trips, unless we've previously decided to do something else with the teacher, like custom design a lesson, is that we just show them where we're at on the farm seasonally because it changes with each season and whatever we're doing at that time. So they're just a farmer for the day, doing whatever the seasonal tasks of the farm are in those days. They just jump right in there with us, like I said, unless the teacher has a specific lesson they're working on and they want to learn about soil or they want to learn about composting or something, then we can customize those things as well.
Maybe talk about breaking them into groups and what kind of tasks we do.
Yeah, so we break them into groups to make it easier for us to manage and easier to keep their attention. So usually groups of like, I don't know, 10 to 15 is optimal, but we've done larger groups depending on the size of the class that's out here. And then we just rotate around the farm into stations. So for example, if we're harvest, wash, and packing, one group will harvest, and maybe that station is harvest, wash, and pack. So that group harvest, wash, and pack. Another group is seeding flats. Another group might be planting, so they can see like the whole process from seed to planting to harvest to wash to pack. And they're actually packing orders that we have sold. So they're actually getting to be part of the whole process. It's not just for show. It really is like they're part of the process. They're going to see this food that maybe goes across the street to Raley's, or they're going to see this food show up even better on the cafeteria in the next couple days. And they might have actually helped harvest, wash, and pack that food. So it's pretty exciting.
Rotate two tasks.
That's what I said. We rotate around the farming.
They get all the tasks.
So they get all the tasks, so they get to see it from start to finish. And we're always sure to tell them, like, this food is going to your cafeteria. Look for it in a couple days. So, yeah. All right.
My filming has been janky, sorry, but hey, you get those
Thank
clouds. Get those clouds today.
Thanks for coming to our farm.